Good afternoon, my dear students. I'm sorry for some technical problem I had with the translation. I think it was depend on the rain. We had heavy rain now, but now is everything good with the link with the internet, and I hope you still are here. And let me start my presentation, and today topic will be about lymphoid or immune system. Okay. I start with telling that the environment in which we live is filled with microbes. It is small organisms that have the ability to cause disease if given the right opportunity. If we did not resist these microbes, we would be ill constantly or even die. It's sad, but that's a fact of life. Fortunately, we have a number of defenses that either keep microbes from entering our bodies or combat them if they do gain entrance. The lymphatic or lymphoid, it's a new name, a lymphoid system, is one of the principal body systems that helps to defend us against diseases produced by microbes. In this lecture, you will learn about the organization and component of the lymphatic system and its role in keeping us healthy. This is the today issues, and we start as usual with the classification and common question, but then we will talk about separated or organs of the immune systems and lymphatic vessels as well. Here you see the picture. The famous Russian scientist Ilya Mechnikov. By the way, our university named after Ilya Mechnikov, and we proud this scientist. And he was the first who discovered immunity, and in his scientific works, he showed that all animals, from simple and with the very small animals to the humans, actively defend themselves against diseases, and in this process we take help from organs of the immune systems. It may come as a surprise to know that the human body harbors at least 10 times as many bacterial cells as human cells, but it shouldn't be surprising. After all, human homeostasis works wonderfully not only to sustain our lives, but also to provide a predictable, warm, wet, nutritious habitat for our internal guests. It's a wonder that the body isn't overrun and consumed by microbes, which indeed quickly happens when one dies and homeostasis ceases. Furthermore, we are constantly exposed to new invaders through the food and water we consume, the air we breathe, and even the surface we touch. We must have a means of keeping such would-be colonists in check. And all of this information we get thanking by Ilya Mechnikov and his works, and other important scientists lived in Europe, United States, and this is the work of lymphoid or immune systems. Here you see different organs which are the parts of the lymphoid system. And as you see, the lymphoid organs are situated at likely portals of entry for infections and for the microbes and for microorganisms. And some of the organs are located inside of bones. This is a bone marrow, and such small, quite small organ located in the chest called thymus. And this is the central organs. But another organs located in the head around pharynx. Some of the organs located in the enteron or intestinum tenue, and a lot of small lymphatic nodules located in different parts of our body are also organs of the immune systems. And mostly lymphatic organs have, and as well as the another organs and parts of our body have got lymphatic vessels. Here you see these small green vessels located in the axial cavity, or for example, here this is a quite huge lymphatic vessels called thoracic ducts. And lymphatic vessels are also a part of the cardiovascular system, but it also is a part of lymphoid or immune systems. Here you see classification of the lymphoid organs. The function of lymphoid organs include mounting and specific immune response. A distinction is drawn between primary and secondary lymphoid organs. What does it mean? The primary lymphoid organs are concerned with the production, maturation, and selection of immune cells. But the secondary lymphoid organs are subsequently populated by the immunocompetent lymphocytes and are sites for various processes such as antigen presentation, lymphocytes proliferation, and antibody formation. As you see here, primary lymphoid organs are first thymus, and second red bone marrow. Secondary lymphoid organs is spleen, lymph nodes, mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. This is in abbreviation we will call it MALT or MALT, and the pharyngeal lymphoid ring located in our head. Bronchus-associated lymphoid tissue has the abbreviation name BALI, and also gut-associated lymphoid tissue called GOLD. This tissue located in the enteron or intestinum tenue. Here Here is presented the lymphoid organs function. The first one is immune function, which is the ability to implement of humoral and cellular responses, not only to genetically foreign agents, but also to own altered cells. As you see here, this is the microbes with or bacteria are attacked by macrophages. This is huge cells which eat such bacteria and inactivate them. But right picture show the cells. They are yellow and we call them natural killer cells. This is lymphocytes, and they are attacking the red small red cells, which is the cancer cells, which has got potentially danger for our health. And the second function of the lymphoid organ is the returning of fluid and plasma. This is a part of the blood. Plasma with its proteins from tissue to the bloodstream. It means the lymphoid organ, mainly lymphoid vessels, transport intercellular fluid to the veins, and this is about 15% of tissue fluid which is removed by lymphatic vessels. Here you see the disease and this is damage of lymph drainage. This is the right picture, and it is called edema. It is a heavy disease which makes our mostly our legs in the such like they are fatty. Here you see here you see next slides is the general patterns of the structure of the organs of the lymphoid system. This is some characteristics or typical features for these lymphoid organs. First one is that the working parenchyma of the organs of the immunogenesis is lymphoid tissue. It means that all lymphoid organs has got lymphoid tissue in its structure. Then we see for all immune organs they generate very early in the embryogenesis, and it means they are very important organs, and it is necessary to start their formation and start their genesis very early. Mostly it start from third or four weeks when our body is very small. Then by the time of the birth, all organs of the immune system have reached and sufficient morphological maturity. It means that before birth it is necessary to organize organ of the immune system, and they are ready to start work immediately after birth. Then we see increasing immune organs during our life, and this increasing is during childhood and adolescence, and the most superactivity of the immune systems we see in the childhood when it is really necessary. Because children meet a lot of new bacterians, microbes, and a lot of factors, and they need very strong immune systems. But the set information, and this make our set, and that all organs of the immune systems usually has got early age-related involution. This is the process when the organ decrease in size and decrease in their activity, and lymphoid tissue replacement is replaced by connective and adipose tissue. It means that immune status, immune activity of all organs of lymphoid systems in the end of line come to the small and very weak, very poor level. Okay, and here you see primary lymphoid organs, and of course this is the red bone marrow. I think this is the number one, because almost every bone has inside of the bone tissue has such special cells which produce lymphoid cells and work as a lymphoid organ. And then also the primary organ is the thymus, which is located in the chest, just up to the heart, and between veins, between main veins, and between lungs. This is the location of the thymus. Here you see some features, typical features of the primary organs of the lymphoid systems. And as you see, the first characteristic is that they are located in places well protected, because these organs are really important for the health and for the body. Then the second characteristic is that all organs of the primary organs are the site of the development lymphocytes. It means these two organs, red bone marrow and thymus, produce lymphocytes. This is a place which located special cells. We call them stem cells. And the third feature is lymphoid tissue has a special microenvironment. It means this tissue which produce lymphocytes has a special tissue characteristics, special tissue elements that determine the direction of the cell's differentiation, and it would be B or T lymphocytes. There are two main group of lymphocytes. First one called B lymphocytes, and the second one is named T lymphocytes. And these cells have different tasks and different roles in the immune system defense. Next picture shows you the secondary lymphoid organs. First of all is a spleen, the organ located in the abdominal cavity, close to the stomach, and this is also organ of not only immune system, but it is the organ of the blood or hematoid system, because the spleen kills old erythrocytes, red cells in the blood. Second is the tonsils. We call these small organs located around the pharynx and around the oral cavity, because this is the entrance for mostly microbes coming to our body. Of course, there are 6 tonsils, 2 paired and 2 unpaired. One of the unpaired located in the radix of lingua, or on the dorsal part of the lingua, and this is a flat tonsils. But between arcus, between palatine arcus, we see, and you can see it yourself in your mouth. See in your mouth in mirror, you can notice these small tonsils also are part of the secondary lymphoid organ system. And some of the lymphoid tissue located in the mucosal element, in bronchus, in the intestinum, and we call them mucosal associated lymphoid tissue number 2.3. And of course, the secondary lymphoid organs are different size lymph nodes located in our body, between visceral organs, between the muscles, and they are also secondary lymphoid organs. Here you see features of the secondary organs of the lymphoid systems, and as you can nicely see, the secondary organs are located on the path of possible introduction into the body foreign substances, and they are located very close to these entrances. And the structure of the secondary organs is progressively more complicated depending on the magnitude and duration of antigenic exposure. It means that secondary organs is the organs which help differentiation. This is a process to organize T and B lymphocytes in some of the direction, and some of the special activity against special microbes. If we compare with human life, we would say that primary organs are organs. This is the birth houses for lymphocytes. This is the houses where they are born, these cells. But the secondary organs, this is the places where lymphocytes get education, like school, primary school, universities. So this is very important differentiation between primary and secondary organs. Let's start now with separated organs, and I'd like to begin with the red bone marrow. You see the name in Latin, and we call this also in Latin. You have to know Latin name, and this is a medulla osseum. Medulla osseum. Please let me just check connection, and if please let me know if everything is well with the translation. I'd like to ask Ahmed, Mohammed, and Asim about translation. If you hear me, just let me know. Please send me text comments if everything correct, if everything is good with the with translation. I put my request in the text in the chat box. I hope you hear me. Well, let's continue our lecture, and I'd like to present you the red bone marrow. It is located in bones, and usually this is the part of the bones we call epiphysis. This is a proximal epiphysis or distal epiphysis. Usually it has spongy substance, and it looks like spongy, like some big cells which are filled with red marrow. Here, this is a bone tissue. It is yellow. Between bones, we see red tissue, and this is the red bone marrow. And usually 2 and 5% of body weight is the weight of the red bone marrow. Here, histologically, you could find different cells located in the red bone marrow, and formed elements of blood squeeze through the endothelial cells into sinusoids, which converge on the central longitudinal veins and the lower left. Here is a typical micro structure of the red bone marrow, which is filled with a lot of cells, like stem cells, which produce lymphocytes. Here is also the picture of red bone marrow in scanning electron microscope, and this is blue cells is especially cells, which is stems. This is stems, or even the major lymphocytes. But here red bones, this is a erythrocytes. Next picture show the origin, development, and the structure of blood cells. As you see, usually in red bone marrow we could find multipotential hematopoietic stem cells. This is a main, very sometimes small cells which may be produced in the erythrocytes or in the myeloblast, but we interested now of this part or of this direction in differentiation blood stem cells, which is a lymphoid progenitor, and as you see, it may be natural killers or two group of lymphocytes. T lymphocytes, usually they are develop in the thymus, because T, it means thymus, the location of T lymphocytes production. But B lymphocytes is the place, B means bursa. This is the some sac, or it was found in birds, but in our body the place for origin and development of the B lymphocytes is red bone marrow. Here you see the also different part of the bone, usually red bone marrow located here, but in the centrum, or in the body of the long bones, usually located the so named yellow bone marrow, which is a place for fat cells, and this is usually the fat come into the bones not in the childhood, but then after 25 years the fat accumulates in the diaphysis of the bones. Here the location of the second primary lymphoid organs called thymus. Thymus has a large size during childhood, but then it decreases in size, and after 25 it is step by step replaced with the fat. It is the same process we see in red bone marrow. The replacement lymphoid tissue for fat cells, that's a typical process. As you see, thymus is a member of both the endocrine and lymphatic systems. It means this organ produces hormones we talked about in the last lecture, in the previous lecture. And thymus houses developing lymphocytes and as well tissue which secretes hormones. Usually, thymus is a bilobed organs. It means it has two lobes, right, sorry, and lobes left. And it is located between the sternum. This is a flat bone on the anterior side of the body, and aortic arch. This is part of the main vessels, main anterior vessels in the upper mediastinum. It means this place where we could see thymus called mediastinum. This is a space between lungs in the chest. If we take a look of gross anatomy of the thymus, we might notice an enveloping layer of connective tissue holds these two lobes closely together. It means around these organs we find connective tissue, and this is like external covering or external layers which is made from the connective tissue. And some of the connective tissue fibrosis capsula, this is capsula, and it gives trabecula, the septa located coming into the lobes and penetrate in the lobes and divide each lobes into lobules. It means if let me explain that graphically. This is a lobe, and inside of lobe we could find lobules with the border of trabeculus. Trabeculus is a part of the connective tissue capsula. And each lobule, here you see this is a lobule. This is, it means lobule, small, it means small lobe. And it consists of the external part called cortex and internal part called medulla. This is a cortex, letter C, and medulla, letter M. Cortex is composed of large numbers of T cells and scattered dendritic cells, epithelial cells, and macrophages. It means here the blue cells, this is the T cells. But also we could find macrophage and some epithelial tissue. Usually this is like a supporting structure for T cells. Medulla, the medulla, I mean this internal part of lobula, consists of widely scattered more mature T cells, epithelial cells, dendritic cells, and macrophages. It means that growing and differentiation of T cells is gone from external to internal. Here we find mature cells, mature T cells, and then they come into the blood from medulla, but not from the cortex. Here is the function of thymus. As I said, it is a central organ of immune systems, and thymus stimulated hormones, produce hormones which stimulate T cells, T lymphocells differentiation, and etc. The typical huge sizes of the thymus we could find in the childhood period of life. This is typically thymus. Usually the right lobe is bigger than left one, and this organ in childhood is relatively firm and conical, but much larger than it is in adult. If depend of the size of the child body and with the size, if we compare this organ for adults. Here is structure of thymus during different period of life. Here number 3 is a typical size of thymus after birth, just after birth. This is number 4, the size and structure of thymus 7 years child, but number 5 is 20 years, number 6 is 30 years, but men like me, sorry, I'm not 66 years still, I'm much younger, but the structure of thymus is poor with lymphoid tissue, and this place of mostly empty place is filled with the fat cells. This is a typical involution. This is a typical involution of the thymus, as well as the red bone marrow. Now it's time to talk about spleen. The Latin name is lean and Greek name is spleen. It's the same. Spleen is organ usually weighs about 140 grams for men and just a little bit less for women. And usually this organ has got very good blood circulation. Every minute about 800 milliliter of blood pass through the spleen. It means this organ get very active circulation. What is the function? There are 5 functions of the spleen. Usually it is a place for differentiation of lymphocytes. Then this organ protects bacteria, protects us against bacteria, protozoa, and foreign particles. And this is a place where antibodies, this is a special protein in our blood, are produced. Spleen is responsible is for the destruction of old and damaged red blood cells. This is erythrocytes, we call them. This is red blood cells. Usually spleen is affected in blood deposition and platelet accumulation, and this is an organ for hematopoiesis. It produces the blood, but just during the embryonic and fetus period of the life. Spleen located in the left hypochondrium. We call this left part of the abdominal cavity, and between 9th and 11 ribs. Its length is directed from top to bottom and outward and somewhat forward, almost parallel to the lower ribs in their posterior part. Gross anatomy of these organs is the spleen has diaphragmatic and visceral surfaces. Here, the smooth surface is close to diaphragm, is under diaphragm, and the part and surface of the spleen with the is touched to the stomach and other organs, called visceral. Usually it has bottom and top edges, and the place where all vessels come into the organ, called gate, or in Latin it is hilus splenic. And as you see, the artery, the splenic artery, entries in the spleen, and here the blue vessels called splenic veins come out of this organ. Internal structure of the spleen is the same. It has a capsula, usually this is a connective tissue capsula, and inside of organs coming trabecular and network reticular fibers, and usually we see the two part of the internal tissue. We call them pulp. Pulp is the internal tissue of the spleen, and there are red and white pulp in the organ. Usually red spleen pulp. This is we distinguish about 75%, and it is really look like a red tissue because it consists venous sinuses. This is some cavities, huge cavities surrounded by reticular tissue, and spaces between the trabecula formed as splenocytes, pulp cells, and this is the place where erythrocytes stopped and utilized and are utilized for the blood. White pulp is this is a lymphoid tissue located along arterial vessels. This is like a green cells located around artery, and we distinguish T and B zones depending on the specialization of its form, its work, and both zones, T and B zones, form lymphocytes. There's different clusters, and we usually very well see the border between red and white pulp in the spleen. It's interesting to find some of the symptoms and some of states when spleen may be enlarged very well. Sometimes, usually it happens during diseases which is syndrome for blood cells diseases. We call them leukemia, chronic leukemia. Usually as a syndrome, as a symptom, has a splenomegaly. This is one big size and of the spleen. Next organs are tonsils. Tonsils is accumulation of lymphoepithelial tissue of the mucous membrane, or just simple mucous of the tongue, palate, and nasopharynx. As I said before, this is six organ, two paired and two unpaired, located just behind oral cavity. Let me show you the location of all tonsils in our body. Pharyngeal tonsils. Here small one, tubal tonsils, palatine tonsils, and lingual tonsils. So these tubal tonsils and palatine tonsils are paired organs, but lingual tonsils and pharyngeal tonsils are unpaired. And this is a funny picture with the lymphoepithelial ring. We call them Pirogov-Waldeyer ring, and all of these small organs are tonsils: palatine, tubal, pharyngeal, and lingual. And they keep each other by the hand. Of course, they don't have hands at all, but they work together as a ring and defend us from the bacteria. This is a picture of histological structure of lingual tonsils. Usually we find some follicles. Follicles is a spheroid histological structures located in the tonsils. Usually every tonsil have a special crypts. This is a fissure or gap between two parts of the tonsils, and usually this is a part where maybe microbes come into the contact with the lymphoid tissue of tonsils. This is in palatine tonsils, as you see with the typical structure. And here follicles we find in each organ of lymphoid systems. It is interesting that inflammation of tonsils we observe and we see during lacunar sore throat. This is quite often happen situation, and usually this infection disease causes by streptococcus. Another infection disease is diphtheria, which is also defeat of palate and tonsils with some white covering structure. Gut-associated lymphoid tissue we find in the enteron or intestinum tenue, which has solitary small lymphoid noduli, but sometimes they combinated together, and this combination called noduli lymphoid aggregate. And if we take a look histological structure, we find the same follicles in the mucosa as we saw in tonsils. That's typical. Here you see follicles or aggregates, noduli aggregates in appendix. It means appendix is a very small structure, is the organ of immune system, because it consists noduli lymphoid aggregate. It has lymphoid tissue. Here a picture of electronical microscopic investigation, and we see this is follicles, and around we find the epithelial processes of the intestinum tenue. Lymph nodes, nodi lymphoid, usually they are organs located during lymphoid vessels, and they serve as the filters of lymph of the pathway from the tissue to the veins. Here, typical structure, you see typical structure of the lymphoid nodes, and some of lymphoid vessels come to the lymphoid node. We call them afferent lymphatic vessels. Afferent. It means they come, they bring lymph to the lymphoid node. But there are also efferent lymphatic vessels in the node, which usually located in the hilum. This is a place for entry another blood vessels. We call hilum of the lymphoid node, and inside of lymphoid node we find small tissue called cortex. This is the external part of lymphoid node, and medulla. It is the same like in the spleen. Cortex and medulla, different part on lymphoid node. Usually all lymph come into the lymphoid node. They pass through the cortex and come into the medulla, and then come into the efferent lymphatic vessels, as you see here. The tissue and the histological structure of lymphoid nodes has the same lymphatic follicles located in the cortex and visible. This is a total histotopogram of the lymphoid node, and visible the medulla, internal structure, and cortex located around medulla. as a talking about the function of lymphoid node, we would say that this is the most important function is filtration, lymph filtration and resorption, different cells and different microbes, and kill them. This is we call them phagocytosis. Also, lymphoid nodes are responsible for producing antibodies, the protein synthesis, and neutralization of toxic substances coming to the lymphoid nodes. All lymphoid nodes are placed for lymphocytes differentiation, and sometimes they are involved in allergic reaction of our body. Here you see different parts and size of lymphatic vessels, and sometimes we find very small vessels, not more than 1 millimeters in diameter, but sometimes they are huge and has up to 2 centimeters long, like here. We distinguish different group of lymphoid nodes located close to organs, and we call them lymphoid nodes first etap of lymph circulation. Then close to in the another part of just in the long distance between organs, we find lymphoid nodes, the second etap of lymph transportation, and also the third etap or third group of lymphoid nodes located quite far from organs, and usually they are located along the main and huge blood vessels like aorta and inferior vena cava. And here you see the classification of lymphatic vessels. The lymph, this is a picture with the lymph which looks like milk sometimes, but it is also maybe as a transparent fluid. It depends if the lymph consists of the fat. Sometimes the small patterns or small drops of the fat is in the lymph, and then it get such as a white color. And lymphatic system is a combination of lymphatic vessels and lymphatic nodes. So it means this is a combined term, and combined systems usually consist of lymphoid nodes and lymphatic vessels. That's all what I'd like to tell you today, my friend, and I'm ready for your questions. If you give me questions, please put it here or in the Moodle. As usual, we organize the forum in the Moodle for your questions. I remember you today about the test you have passed after this lecture. It is test for all lymphoid organs, and you find it also in the Moodle. Thank you for your attention. I hope you have got more knowledge about and more information about lymphoid organs, and I will be happy if you get high scores in that test. Good luck in test. Thank you for your attention. My name is Dmitry Starchik. As usual, I coming to you from the Department of Human Morphology. Have a nice weekend, my friends, and see you again later. Bye bye.